Did you know that every day of the year has a Wikipedia article on it? I mean, it makes sense. Literally everything has an entry on Wikipedia. But there was something novel about Googling March 5th and the first Google result being a Wikipedia article for March 5th. And immediately, you may be asking yourself, why on September 17th am I Googling March 5th? And I promise we'll get to that. But first, did you know that in 1616, on March 5th, Copernicus's book on the Earth orbiting the sun was officially banned? Or that in 1872, air brakes were patented, which give trucks that distinctive hissing noise when they ruin takes of my videos. I think this aside probably deserves its own video altogether, but I quickly looked over all the events for March 5th and tallied up whether they were good or bad. And 59% of them were bad news, like war stuff, people dying, that sort of thing. Also, Wikipedia breaks up these events into three categories: pre-1600, 1601 to 1900, and 1901 to present. And you can see a pretty precipitous decline in the good news stuff that's happening, although you might be able to chalk that up to a couple of world wars heavily influencing that. Anyway, back to Googling March 5th. I generally Google dates when I want to figure out how long ago they were, because math is hard. And it turns out, as of recording this video, March 5th is 561 days ago. Which, very coincidentally, also means that it has been 561 days since the last time I got a haircut. If it just so happens that the only reason you are watching this video was to find out what 561 days of hair growth looks like on me, then you can stop watching now, and we will pick up the next exciting installment of this series next week with 568 days of hair growth. Riveting, I know. For the rest of you, I think I should probably explain why I wanted to know exactly how long ago my last haircut was. Before the pandemic, I got my haircut like a clock every 6 weeks. In fact, looking at my calendar, I can see an April 14th haircut date that never happened because the pandemic canceled it by shutting everything down. Not going to that haircut was a particularly memorable event because it really symbolized the first official thing that I had canceled due to fear of the pandemic and wanting to safeguard myself. It cemented for me that things were going to be different for a while, and we really didn't know what was going on. Prior to this, I had heard rumblings of the pandemic, but none of them had really manifested in my life. So canceling this haircut was the first tangible change that I had really made to my life due to the pandemic. As the pandemic continued, lots of people far more adaptable than me found ways to get their hair cut. They had significant others or friends cut their hair, or they went to a park and met a stylist to get their hair cut in the great outdoors. But I took a very different approach. Instead, I decided that I would just wait and get a haircut when things were back to normal. And 561 days and counting, things are still pretty weird. A couple of weeks ago, I had my second birthday within the pandemic. And I actually made a version of that super short birthday video where I acknowledged that it was my second birthday inside of the pandemic, but it didn't land quite right because it was a minute and 45-second video where I essentially said that I was gonna phone this video in and go take it easy. But ever since then, it's stuck with me that the vast majority of people at this point have had a second birthday in the confines of this disaster. And a lot of people are starting to see number 3 right on the horizon. And honestly, that's a sobering thought in and of itself. But the purpose of this video is not to dwell on the shambles of a world that we currently live in. Instead, this video is about the shambles that my hair is currently in after 2 years of wanton neglect, and the perhaps somewhat twisted mindset that has led me to this particular disaster. You see, I've been puzzling a bit with why I haven't gotten a haircut. As the world has better understood the disease, it has become safer to go out and do things as I have become vaccinated. The opportunity is there. It is now safe. I think I could safely go get my haircut, and yet here we are with me not getting my haircut. And despite wanting to get my haircut, I have struggled with why I continue to choose not to. For those of you who are unfamiliar with hair, let's take a moment there. If you are unfamiliar with hair, please let me know. I'm super curious who you are and what your story is. But for the rest of you, hair, especially long hair, is a maintenance nightmare. It takes a lot of work to wash it thoroughly, and honestly, I've become a little sick and tired of watching the maintenance man for my building fish a metric squirrel of my hair out of the shower drain every few months at this point. And honestly, those squirrel-sized hairballs alone should be enough to motivate getting a haircut. Yet here I am, not getting a haircut, waiting for everything to be normal again. At times, it feels like I am embroiled in some type of follicular equivalent of a hunger strike where I hope that one day the universe will get so sick and tired of seeing my abnormally long hair that it will just relent and say, okay, pandemic is over, please, please, please just get a haircut. Or maybe it feels like some type of strange hybrid between promise and superstition. Like if I were to get my hair cut, I would somehow jinx us. We'd have 7 years more pandemic Groundhog Day style. But in the process of writing this script, I think I've more clearly put my finger on what is at the core of me waiting. And what it boils down to is I want my mission accomplished moment with this pandemic. A moment where I get to stand up on the metaphorical aircraft carrier backdropped by a sign saying that we won and acknowledge that things have returned to normal and that the crisis is finally over. And learning from my meme ancestors, when that moment comes, I would like not to be embroiled in that crisis for 3 more years after I give the metaphorical speech. And by speech, I obviously mean walking out of a salon about 12 pounds of hair lighter. I think that there is a part of me that is afraid that without a clear line of demarcation, I may never find normal again. The reality is that the new normal that we eventually find ourselves in will likely be different than the normal that we had before the pandemic. And our transition into that new normal is going to be a gradual one where there is no clear distinction, and one day we just find ourselves in something that seems like the new normal. It's unlikely that our world leaders will ever stand up on their various stages and claim that the crisis is completely over, COVID was eradicated forever. So, right or wrong, I have decided to take that moment into my own hands. I have decided that there will be a line drawn in the sand that separates abnormal from normal. And apparently that line will be a haircut for me. Is this rational? No. Is this sensible? Probably not. Is there a distinct chance that I will change my mind and get a haircut before we approach something regarding a new normal? Yeah, maybe. But for now, rather irrationally, I have decided to connect these two things. My long hair is a symptom of the fact that I continue to live in a weird, abnormal world. And my hair will be short again when I feel like I live in a world that has returned to sanity. And I decided I wanted to share this bizarre explanation of the way that my mind works. I'm really curious if this is something that other people identify with. Is this something that feels bizarre to you or familiar? But for now, I think that's it for me. I hope that you have a wonderful week. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Not a potamus. Ponderous.